I love John Lennon. I think that John Lennon was the Beatles. I think Paul McCartney was a friend who joined the Beatles, who also had a lot of talent for being charming and cute. But I feel like the spirit of the Beatles was in John. Not that it matters, the Beatles was just a group. But John Lennon wrote a song, and I don't know if you know this, but the last 3 months of John's life, well, he and Yoko were separated for quite a while, but living in the same building, Dakota. But they lived on different floors in different apartments. She was busy running their empire, making more and more money, and he wanted to quit. He wanted to retire. He wanted to spend time with his family. And she was saying, do one more album, one more album. And he loved her in the wrong way, which is that he submitted to her. He wanted her to be happy. And I'll bet she could be very unhappy. So he was working on another album, but he was also reading the Bible all day, every day, for 3 months. This is according to his personal assistant, who was there at all times in case John needed something. John wrote 2 songs about Jesus that have never been heard. I have copies of them because of a journalist friend of mine named Steve Turner, who wrote the book called Amazing Grace, and about 20 other books. And Steve, although he was blatantly a Christian, was friends with so many rockers. Paul McCartney commissioned him to write 2 different books. U2 had him write 2 or 3 books. Eric Clapton did a book with him. I mean, this unassuming Christian man had the ear of the rock community, and he was such a good writer. Most of them approached him at different times to please write a book for them, because they wanted a really good book, not just some hagiography about them. So he said, you mustn't let anybody ever listen to these tapes, because I promised John I wouldn't bootleg them. So John, and this is nothing you'll ever read in any of Yoko's books, God bless her. And I pray for Yoko. I have a lot of love for her. And I have an awful lot of love for John and for Paul. I've spoken to Paul before. He played a trick on me once. He walked up behind me and got right in my ear and said, I like your music. And I whipped around thinking it was one of the guys in the band. And I saw it was him. And I couldn't speak. Inside, my mind was racing. You can't be Paul. You don't live in Los Angeles. You live in Strawberry Lane or something like that. You're a Beatle. You can't be here in L.A. and you can't talk to me. But he had heard my music, and one time he said in the Swedish press that if Larry Norman had only chosen not to sing solely about Jesus Christ, he would have been one of the stars of the 70s, which I totally disagree with, because you have to write commercial songs to be a hit artist, to be a star, and I've never written anything commercial. I've devoted all of my songs to Jesus, and I'm not even sure they're good enough for God, but I know God loves me and accepts whatever we give him, even if it's the mite. But I don't write commercial songs. But it's nice that Paul regarded me as a decent Christian, one that had value, because sometimes rock and rollers, they know people who are Christians and they lose respect for Christianity. And you would if you were a rocker and people, fussed over you, and you are just a man. Oh yeah, so John Lennon called in the 700 Club and asked them to pray for his salvation. He prayed with them. He was on his knees He said, I'm on my knees, I'm in a hotel room, I've been crying, so I don't know if you can understand me, but would you please pray for me? I want to become a Christian. Anyway, he wrote a song many years before called God. Because John, as I said, I think John was the Beatles, the spirit of the Beatles, or the soul of the Beatles. He was always trying to find something more. He was looking for truth. And so he wrote this song, God. And he didn't know who God was or what God was, but he knew that it wasn't what other people leaned toward or believed in this world. So he's saying, I don't believe in Beatles. I don't believe in Maharishi. I don't believe in the primal scream. I don't believe in, and then he ended up just saying, I believe in me, Yoko and me, and that's reality.